Going beyond the headlines. Asking the questions you want answered. Exploring government policies and how they impact you. We are delving deeper.
Good evening and welcome to Delving Deeper. I'm your host, Kimberly D'Souza. Joining us this evening is the Chief Executive Officer of the National Agricultural Marketing Development Corporation, or NAMDEVCO, Ms. Nirmalla Debysingh. Ms. Debysingh, good evening. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Now let's start off first with the role and function of NAMDEVCO.
NAMDEVCO's role is primarily to bridge the gap between production and marketing, using established good agricultural practices for sustainability, increasing economic value, while at the same time building a resilient, food-secure nation, inculcated with food security as our #1 goal here in Trinidad and Tobago. Why food security, you may ask? Because food security and food safety are the tickets to help us to export our foods to the world. As it relates to our function, we are an Act of Parliament. We are Act 16 of 1991, and therein lies the function of NAMDEVCO, which is to facilitate agricultural marketing and to also create the environment for the development of agriculture and agricultural marketing. In a nutshell, more information can be found in our Act, which is available throughout all of the internet sources.
Now, by the very word NAMDEVCO, we have the word agriculture. And so when I think about stakeholders as it relates to NAMDEVCO, I'm thinking farmers. But tell us who are some of the other stakeholders and some of the feedback you've received thus far.
Other stakeholders include all of the players along the value chain. Farmers are primarily one, yes, but the farmers require support. They are the seedling producers, the fertilizer suppliers, the persons who create these new technologies and who have these new technologies available. We're talking about greenhouses, shade houses, aquaponics, aquaculture systems, hydroponic systems. These are all the persons who the farmers depend on to be successful in their business enterprises. Along the value chain as we move along, the agroprocessors, even the harvesters, the persons who assist the farmers to harvest their produce, transport suppliers, cold chain facilities, post-harvest handling facilities. These are some of the other valuable players along the food chain who support the role of the farmer. And let us not forget the consumer, one of the more important stakeholders along the value chain, because it is based on their demand for good food, for safe food. That is why the farmer has a continuous business opportunity using his farm as a business enterprise.
Yeah. And what are some of the feedback that you would have received from some of these stakeholders?
Stakeholders demand safe food. They demand food all the time. They don't want to have food at some times of the year and not have food at other times of the year. Primarily, we are moving into persons who are demanding health and safety. People want foods that are healthy for their bodies and their families. They want foods that are convenient. They want food that is available all of the times. We do have a sector of our population who are also demanding convenient foods. They want to be able to get healthy, nutritious foods on demand, on the go, that can help them in their meal preparation. So it makes meal preparations easier. Those are some of the demands of the consumers.
And while we're on the topic of the stakeholders, how often will NAMDEVCO meet and have discussion with them?
We try to have meetings with our stakeholders once a year. So because of our facilities where we have farmers markets, wholesale markets, retail markets, fish markets, we try to meet with our consumers at least once a year, primarily to guide us on where are the areas of development, which is part of our function, as you correctly identified. development is part of our acronym. We try to meet with them to see how best we can facilitate their needs, their demands, and how we do better, how we can do better at what we are doing for the betterment of their lifestyles and their livelihoods.
Now, in terms of the farmers, because you mentioned how you can help them to develop and that kind of thing, if they want to export, then how can NAMDEVCO help them with that process?
So to export, we have a number of activities currently ongoing at NAMDEVCO to support export, both for regional exports and international exports. Let's talk about international exports. For international exports, especially to the US market and to the Canadian market and even to the European market, which are some of our major international export hubs, therein requires a certain amount of training. Farmers have now, based on the Food Safety Modernization Act out of the United States, Food and Drug Administration, US FDA, they are required to show evidence of being familiar with the rules for produce safety out of the US FDA. NAMDEVCO offers that training in collaboration with other agencies such as IECA, and the farmers receive certificates from US FDA, which makes them eligible to export into the US. Similar programs are offered for the Canadian market as evidence that the farmers are ready for export. Additionally, there is another rule out of the US FDA, which is the Human Food Rule, which NAMDEVCO also offers training on. If we look at regional exports, NAMDEVCO has signed a trade protocol with the Barbados government, which means that we have a certain set of rules that farmers and exporters must abide by to facilitate exports. Fortunately, that trade protocol is also recognized by other regional partners in other regional countries, CARICOM countries included. So it makes ease of export into the region very amenable. All it means is that NAMDEVCO's Farm Certification and Monitoring Program, which is a program that monitors farms and collects data, and they guide the farmers on established good agricultural practices, ensuring that the output of those farms are safe for human consumption and safe for export in terms of protecting the agriculture of the exporting country. It's free of pests and free of diseases, so it's safe to ship those produce from our farms into regional farms. And based on that protocol, our farm certification program, which was developed in and around that program, can now facilitate regional exports based on that trade protocol. As I said, it's a protocol with Barbados, but it is recognized by our regional partners, and that has supported export. Now, we don't stop there. NAMDEVCO also has a packing house facility where the packing house staff are very familiar with the trade protocols and the packing requirements for each of the importing countries. Farmers, consumers, exporters, just about anyone who is interested in exporting, whether you are primary producer or your primary business is exporting, can access the facilities of the packing house at a small fee to support your business of exporting to other countries, including the international hubs, as I would have just mentioned.
That's very interesting. I didn't even know that before. And then it leads me to the type of produce that we export. And so can you give us an example of what we export regionally and internationally? Is there a difference? Are there similarities between the two?
Exports are driven by demand. And there are some foods that we grow here whose flavor profiles are demanded in other countries, based on, persons who've migrated, persons who've come to our shores, adopted a liking for the taste of certain foods. And so in the past, and even now, there are many demands for approximately 10 commodities. And I will tell you what they are, and I'll also tell you what we are doing about it to facilitate better exports. They are dashing bush, pumpkin, hot peppers, pimentos, pineapple, papaya, watermelon, shadow benny. So these are some of the demand commodities, and quite recently, many persons would have seen it. There was a stakeholder forum because we've collaborated with the Bureau of Standards, and we've asked them to assist us in sanctioning the development of grades and standards for 3 commodities in the first instance to support export and to support local marketing of these commodities. And those commodities where grades and standards are developed primarily for, in the first instance, it's hot peppers, pimentos, pumpkins. So these commodities, as well as pineapples, these commodities, their grades and standards are being developed. I should say they are developed, they're not being developed. And we are now out for public opinions before the TTBS sanctions it as established grades and standards. And that similar pattern will follow for all the other commodities that I just mentioned, thereby supporting better marketing of these commodities for local and export markets.
Ms. Debysingh, one of the things I think is interesting is that I didn't hear breadfruit on the list, but we know how many we grew in Tobago. Any particular reason for that?
Breadfruit, there is a lot of work happening in the breadfruit arena. We do know that the UWI has done a lot of groundwork on breadfruit in terms of production and in terms of value-added processing. But we have not gotten the demand as yet for breadfruit from our clientele, while in the past and still there are some shipments of breadfruits happening into the US market. It's one of the commodities that we will consider in the near future.
And Ms. Debysingh, as it relates to farmers, how many are actually registered and able to export their produce?
So NAMDEVCO's database has just over 3,000 farmers registered right now. Registered means that you have been following the Barbados Trade Protocol. In some instances, farmers are classified as certified, where their farms are given a certification number. And there are some farms that are classified as pre-certified, where they are about to receive certification status. Nevertheless, according to the regional trade protocol that we've signed with Barbados, once the farms are in the certification or the pre-certification status, they are eligible to export to Barbados and by extension regionally. While that trade protocol is not recognized by international countries, the data from those farms are sufficient to support trade into the international markets on the onus that the farmers would have completed the FSMA training, which is the Food Safety Modernization Act training, produce safety rule, that now makes them eligible to export into the US market.
So then how many farmers can actually export to the US?
So we have approximately 200 farmers who would have accessed the training so far. The training is ongoing. So those 200 are eligible to export right now. Sometimes they are not the exporter, but the produce comes from their farms. So that means they must be on Cura with the training. And the training is ongoing. So therefore, more and more farmers are being added to the lot of persons who are eligible to export, or more correctly, whose produce from their farms are eligible for export.
So just to understand, it doesn't matter if you're an old farmer or a new farmer. Once you go through the process of becoming certified, then you can be eligible to export either regionally or internationally?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's correct. Yes.
Now, as it relates to the other services that NAMDEVCO offers, so we're hearing that the company helps the farmers facilitate trading, but what other services are offered, not just to farmers, but other stakeholders as well?
So our wholesale markets, for example, we have 4 wholesale markets. We have fish wholesale markets, 2 in operation, and we have 2 wholesale fresh produce markets in operation. You don't only have to be a farmer to trade at those facilities. You can be a vendor, you can be a middleman, you can be a family trader. We assist and support those sorts of trading at our markets. NAMDEVCO is also the recipient or the holder of 10 farmers markets. So those 10 farmers markets, while they provide opportunities solely to farmers, there are a lot of opportunities for family farming to extend their trade and the output of their farms to those facilities. As I said again, the packing house facility also provides facilities for agroprocessors who may not have a space to process their produce or food that is ready to eat in Trinidad. We must abide by the public health laws. Sometimes agroprocessors do not have a certified facility to be able to process food for human consumption. NAMDEVCO offers that space at the packing house facility. That space can also be utilized by agroprocessors for commercial production lines. You may want to expand your production at certain times of the year. You may want to bring your product to the next stage of processing because you cannot do it in your existing space. NAMDEVCO's packing house facility also provides this type of service. On the marketing arm, NAMDEVCO has a buyers and sellers forum. This forum is a virtual forum, and it can also be a communication forum via telephone where we link buyers and sellers, and there is no limit to where the buyers and sellers can come from. So we can link regional and international buyers to sellers and vice versa. That same marketing arm is also an arm that is responsible for data dissemination. We have the NAMIS database, which is a database that gives real-time information on the trading of fresh produce out of the Macoya wholesale market and the fish markets on a daily basis. So apart from linking buyers and sellers, we also provide information on the price and volume traded for the day so that stakeholders along the value chain can make informed decision making. It means that you have information at your fingertips. You can determine how your business can be established for the day, for the week, for the month. You can look at trends, historic trends from years gone by if you have to make decisions. Additionally, I mentioned NAMIS, which is our digital output of price and volume data. NAMDEVCO has also embarked on many other digital transformation opportunities. So for example, we've made it easier to enter into our markets through our prepaid systems. Our prepaid systems allow persons to pay in advance to secure their selling spots at our various markets, both wholesale and farmers market, so that you are assured that your spot is available whenever you are ready to trade. So these prepaid systems, they extend to 1 month. And so farmers, vendors, even consumers who are interested in selling produce, they have the opportunity to utilize the prepaid system.
Now, I love that you're talking about how NAMDEVCO is leveraging technology to assist the farmers. And I know that last year we had our Agri Forum where everybody was coming into the region, because you also mentioned that connection that you're creating with, farmers and other stakeholders. What sort of points or tips coming out of the Agri Forum you can say has assisted NAMDEVCO not just to leverage technology, but to assist the stakeholders as well?
One of the things that we recognize that the sector craves is information and data. And so we are in the process of upgrading our data portals to be able to provide more information, but not only information, but information that will assist you to make better decisions. So you can look at historical trends, you can look at price and volume data, you can look at what consumers are saying, you can look at where the demands are, to make informed decision whether it is for primary production, whether you choose to get into an agro-processing industry, whether you see a need to develop part of the sector that is underdeveloped, let's say packaging. There are so much information that's available out there that we want to put out to persons. One of the other things that we're embarking on very, very quickly is the utilization of GIS to be able to give real-time data on national production. So this is an upcoming project that we are currently working behind the scenes with, and it's all based on digital transformation and ICTs. We're also looking at developing a farmers-only wholesale market. While we have a wholesale market that's open to all, therein lies the opportunities for farmers who are registered, who are certified to have an opportunity to sell wholesale. And why are we doing this? This is being done based on demands of our clients who are commercial buyers. They want to be able to buy from certified farms all in one place. So we are creating the opportunities for restaurant chains who need to ensure that their licensing agreements, that their food safety protocols, that their traceability practices and their traceability requirements are being met. So this wholesale farmers market will meet all of those requirements of commercial entities, because now it gives them an opportunity to be working directly with farmers who have records, who are registered somewhere, and who are being monitored by some program and some entity. And in this case, it would be NAMDEVCO.
Ms. Debysingh, I also want to go back to 2022. What we saw last year was severe flooding, right? And as a result of it, we saw an increase in fresh produce prices. I mean, let me take you back to Christmas when scythe was $10 a bundle, right? Yes. Huge increase in prices. And a lot of consumers were upset, they were complaining. Does NAMDEVCO have sort of a relationship with the farmers, or how does NAMDEVCO get involved in situations like these?
So, categorically, let me state that NAMDEVCO is not responsible for the prices that farmers, vendors, middlemen sell their foods at. Our primary role is data dissemination. So we collect the data and we give it back to all those who are concerned. Subject to the flooding, while we understand that there was a supply and demand situation, and this is primarily the reason that the food prices would have increased significantly, what we would have done after that is we would have advocated on behalf of the farmers to have assistance brought to their farms where there were major damages, whether it be roadways, whether it be bridges, whether it be pumps, whether it be sluice gates. We did an impact assessment after the floods to identify what are some of the changes that are needed, where some of the infrastructure needs to be upgraded, so that, God forbid, in the event of another natural disaster such as that, we can reduce the amount of food losses on the farm. In addition to that, while we do not control prices, the packing house facility has the ability to store just about 100,000 kilograms of fresh produce at any one point in time. And so when we see the weather patterns are changing, and we are into the advent of climate change right now, once we recognize that waters are not receding, the rainfall is continuous, landslides are evident, we always encourage farmers to harvest what is harvestable, and you can store it at the packing house. And we advocate, of course, not produce that is damaged by flood. We cannot store that. So we offer you the opportunity to store your produce under post-harvest handling conditions that is going to sustain the shelf life, the natural shelf life of that particular food. It's not going to make it better. It's not going to enhance the quality, but it's going to help you to maintain a particular shelf life so that that food can be placed on the market thereafter.
Now, Ms. Debysingh, is there a way for farmers to track their produce? I mean, how can you ensure that it's going to be safe, that whatever I bring in when I'm ready to sell, it will be there waiting for me?
Good. So we do have systems at the packing house where each farmer is allocated a particular number. Their delivery number is salient to them. The holding containers are marked, they're labeled. Each produce is stored according to the conditions for storage for that particular produce. They're stored in different storage units depending on how the food should be stored, whether it's climacteric, non-climacteric. Everything is sorted out, organized, segregated, properly labeled, and there are constant monitoring and checks on the farmer's produce. So primarily when the farmer brings his produce to the packing house, it's offloaded into different colored crates, it's labeled, it's weighed, and the monitoring process continues until the farmer is able to retrieve his produce for whatever market he chooses, whether it's fresh market, whether it's for an agro-processor, but there is an element of traceability in the packing house when the produce arrives there for whatever purpose, whether it is for storage, whether it is for export, or whether it is for further agro-processing.
Yeah. Now, what we're seeing now is the reverse, right? We're seeing a decrease in prices for certain produce. Does that have to do with demand and supply, or what sort of reasons we can give for this?
Yeah, absolutely correct. It's based on demand and supply. So we have an influx of fresh produce now because the growing conditions, the climate is supporting this type of production. You have a reduction in pest and disease. You do have challenges with the input supply still on behalf of the farmers, but primarily we are seeing an increase in production, and this is nothing unusual. This is typical for this time of the year, which is where we call the dry season. We do see an influx of produce. So now is the time where the prices are going to be very reasonable and acceptable by consumers. But once the rains come, it's a challenge for the farmers, especially those who still practice open field production. Sometimes, based on their growing areas, they are challenged by the weather. So, of course, persons who use technology-based agricultural systems, they are able to mitigate against the climate, and they are able to adopt to climate change where they can sustain production year-round. And these are some of the practices that we are supporting the farmers on and encouraging them to get into. And on that note, I'd just like to mention that the Ministry of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries has an agro incentive grant where they are encouraging farmers to apply for the grant of up to $100,000 that can assist them to upgrade their farms, whether they choose to include solar technology as an energy source on the farm, whether they choose to upgrade their irrigation systems, whether they choose to look at protected agricultural systems. This funding can be used by farmers. It's also eligible to agro-processors, fisher folk, forestry personnel, persons who are involved in forestry. It's open to everyone. So I'd just like to, encourage our stakeholders out there to access this grant. And the grant can be accessed through the Ministry of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries website. It's that simple.
Now, Ms. Debysingh, while it is that simple, of course, there's going to be a criteria. Can you tell us what's the criteria? And if you can't go too detailed, tell us where the stakeholders can go to get more information on that.
So they can, the criteria is simple. Of course, there are some mandatory requirements of being a farmer. Your farmer's registration status must be up to date. Your land holding status must be up to date. Your national ID, your business plan. It sounds grand, but your business plan, which details what you want the money for, what's the history of what you're doing, why this grant is going to help you and support you in doing what you're doing. So a simple business plan is also going to facilitate the application process. And if you want more information on this program, simply go to the Ministry of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries website. It's called the Agro Incentive Grant, And there you can find a lot of information inclusive of the application form for that program.
I want to stay on the farmers a bit because I want us to get a clear definition of wholesale market versus farmers market, because there is a school of thought that the farmers market, the prices are cheaper. Is that true? Is it not true? And what are the differences between the two?
So let's talk about wholesale markets. The wholesale markets are a subsidiary legislation of the NAMDEVCO Act, which is Act 16 of 1991. And therein lies specific operational criteria for the wholesale market. The wholesale market has a minimum amount of produce that can be purchased at any one point in time by the consumer. The wholesale market is open to wholesalers, vendors, farmers, middlemen, just about anybody. But the premise of the farmers market now is based on retail trade. So there is no maximum or minimum that you can purchase to begin with. Secondly, the farmers market the produce can only be sold by farmers, and the farmers must be the owners of the produce. It's not as if neighboring farms can bring produce to market. No. The farmer, utilizing the farm to table initiative, is where we do justice to just that the foods move direct from the farm through the farmer to your table. There is one exchange of food. Therein lies the opportunity for no add-ons once the food changes hands several times. So, yes, the foods sold at our farmers markets are direct from the farm, and the prices are established by the farmers again. NAMDEVCO does not establish the prices at the farmers markets. So, of course, the farmer will calculate his cost of production and whatever other overheads, and he himself or she herself will determine the cost to sell to their consumers on that day.
Yeah, and I guess because there's no middleman, there's little room to kind of haggle and negotiate. So I guess that could also be the trade-off in the price.
Of course, yeah. You're quite right.
Interesting.
Yes.
Now, it seems that NAMDEVCO has been working a lot in terms of technology and ensuring that their stakeholders are covered. But I know that you might be experiencing some challenges at the corporation. Can you share a bit of that?
You know, when we have stakeholder sessions, one of our challenges is to actually get all of the stakeholders to come. And we are so happy to hear from our stakeholders, you would not believe. Because we want to know that when we engage in a project, it's to benefit them. And perhaps that's our biggest challenge, getting our stakeholders to give us that feedback. But we're working on it. We're utilizing different communication forums. We are out there a lot, and we're doing it one-on-one because we need to. We need to hear from our farmers. We need to hear from our consumers to be able to do what we do better.
Yeah. And on the flip side, discuss some of the successes from the corporation.
That's a long list. So, one of our flagship projects right now is the upgrade of the Farm Certification and Monitoring Program. And that upgrade is to the Good Agricultural Practices Certification Program, which was also developed by the Trinidad and Tobago Bureau of Standards in conjunction with other sister agencies such as IECA and FAO. So this is a great certification program. It's available. The standard for the program is available for sale from the TTBS. Farmers, consumers, just about anybody who is interested in becoming GAP certified for Trinidad and Tobago can access the document and identify what they need to do to become certified. Now, we are in the process of implementing that certification program. The information is available on our website and the Bureau of Standards website and many other websites, especially those of the collaborating agencies that came together to develop it. Of course, we're also always upgrading those markets to better meet the needs of the stakeholders. So, for example, in Debe, you're going to see a new washroom facility. You're going to see some readjustments of the spatial area where we're giving more space to vendors. We have the development of a food court because we want to encourage local entrepreneurs to sell more local foods. When they do fast foods, include more local menu items, you know, in your service to customers. We can also look at the upgrade to the Buyers and Sellers Forum. It's going to be upgraded very soon to a cloud-based system, which is, you know, very exciting for us. Of course, the real-time data based on GIS technology, where we're going to be utilizing satellite and drone technology to be able to tell you at a moment's notice what is being produced on the ground from a national level, not only from the farms that are registered with NAMDEVCO. One of our newest establishments is an evening wholesale market in Mokoya. So those of us who do not want to, you know, get up those wee hours of the morning, or who don't have to buy wholesale volumes, you can now visit our Mokoya market on a Friday afternoon from 4 p.m. to still gain the benefits of wholesale trade in the afternoon. On the matter of digitization, do you know that we do have a collaboration with OnQ at the Port of Spain Farmers Market, where you can actually shop at the farmers markets online? Yes, we do. Okay. Yes, we do. So consumers can enjoy staying at home and shopping at the farmers market on a Saturday morning online. Yes. And this is a collaborative service with OnQ. So we encourage persons to continue to use that app and, you know, shop from our farmers markets and online. And I mean, it's incredible. People enjoy it. We have, for about a year now, embarked on a campaign that's known as Total Local. Total Local means eat what you grow, grow what you eat. And we have been advocating this campaign at all of the events we take part in. So you're going to see our menu servants, you're going to see our characters. We also encourage youth at the schools. Whenever we have the opportunity, we encourage youth at the schools to eat local. Grow what you eat what you grow. We've done a lot of service in terms of distribution of seeds and seedlings at various entities, because we want to encourage persons to eat what you grow and grow what you eat. And last but not least is our Market Box project. Throughout the COVID, NAMDEVCO was tasked with the activity to deliver just about 25,000 market boxes each month for the period May to December 2021 to persons who were affected by COVID. And so we've done that program quite successfully in collaboration with the farmers who are certified on the program. And that project has brought a lot of opportunity to farmers, to other types of stakeholders along the value chain. And so that is also another project that we will be embarking on in the very near future.
NAMDEVCO seems to be pretty busy for the year 2023. But before we go, final thoughts, anything else that you may have missed that you want to share with us now? Any words of advice for our viewers, anything like that?
I want to advise persons to continue to look at our social media platforms: Instagram, Facebook, our website, TikTok for the younger guys.
NAMDEVCO is on TikTok.
NAMDEVCO is on TikTok and YouTube.
Very nice.
Yeah, so we try to bring a lot of videos that will encourage our youth. For those social medias, you know, of course, our youths are the targets. We teach you about proper post-harvest handling practices. We teach you about utilizing local agricultural produce to do some of your most creative menus. And, you know, we teach you about safety. Food safety is critical and you know, utmost importance in what we do, because if we don't eat safe foods, our bodies are damaged and we can't be efficient at what we do. We also affect our economy. Food quality. Everyone is demanding quality foods, and that's very important, because if you or I go to shop, we want the produce that's looking the absolute best. And so we're trying to work with our farmers to ensure that quality is the primary output of their farms, quality both in terms of the physiological quality as well as the safety of the food that you are producing, and hence our GAP certification program. That's where it comes in, because that certification programs that says to the consumer that once this farm is GAP certified, that the farm has been practicing the food safety practices that is auditable, that is recognized, and that can be verified through any verification procedure. GAP is going to do this. So in the very near future, when you see a food product that is stamped GAP certified, when you see a fresh agricultural produce that says GAP certified, when you see a farm that is established and that is recognized as GAP certified, know that is built on the principles of food safety for the farm. And where does food safety start? It doesn't start in the store. It doesn't start in the processing area. Food safety starts on the farm.
Yeah, and I think that is where we're going to leave it for this evening. Ms. Debysingh, let me thank you so much for coming in and sharing all the work that NAMDEVCO has been doing, and I hope that the corporation continues to assist its stakeholders in the near future. So thank you so much.
I thank you for this opportunity.
And that's our show. This is how we close off this episode of Delving Deeper. But join us at the same time next week for another edition of Delving Deeper. I am Kimberly D'Souza, and on behalf of our entire crew, have a good night.